all suffered through long, boring, mundane, seemingly pointless dungeons before, and as a result, it births a bitter memory that can stain even the most beloved of games. These dungeons are, unfortunately, mandatory and would turn you off replaying the game, knowing what lies ahead and making you utter the words, I hate this next place. Like most of my top 10 lists, they are from my personal experience, and if I've missed a dungeon that left you seething, please comment below and share your frustration. It'll make you feel better. While there are a few spoilers, I will generally try and avoid talking about plot-related stuff and just vent over the dungeon itself. With that out of the way, let's get started. Number 10. Lighthouse, Breath of Fire 3. After dealing with an abysmal minigame training up a loser to impress a girl, Ryu and the gang are tasked with fixing the lighthouse to get a ship to the other side of the sea. This was supposed to be done by the loser you trained, but he got hurt, so you have to do it, making the whole minigame pointless. Anyway, you go through the lighthouse, and it's fairly typical dungeon stuff. Monsters pop up, you navigate your way around to get power to the light, but that's when you run into a particular prompt where you have to feed precious ore into a generator and flip a switch at a particular time. If you fail, you lose the ore and need to feed another one in. This is where a problem can occur if you're shit at timing stuff like me. If you run out of ore, you have to leave the dungeon and go buy more. And baby, they are not cheap. Once you master the switch and run the power to the top, you fight a cool boss, and then a fairy smashes the light and renders all of your hard work to nothing. All because some Australian dolphin is threatening a village of fairies. No joke. Ugh. Number 9. The Warrens, Darkest Dungeon.
The ways and rituals of blood sacrifice are difficult to master. Those from beyond require a physical vessel if they are to make the crossing into our reality. The timing of the chants is imperative. Without the proper utterances at precise intervals, the process can fail spectacularly.
Out of the different themed dungeons you can tackle in Darkest Dungeon, the Warrens are the worst. While all of the dungeons have traps and tempting items that can mess you up, the Warrens adds the constant threat of the Blight status, and has the most dedicated stress damage enemies than any other location. Stress damage, if you aren't familiar with the game, causes your characters to test their will, and either become shining beacons of hope, or, the more likely result, a stressed out asshole who can, be a detriment to the party, refusing to do certain things, healing only themselves, or switching places and royally fucking up your skill set that rely on positioning. I am always on the verge of stress and or death in this place. As you can see, I was lucky to make it out with my team in this one.
The thing is even more horrible than death. Liquefaction cannot come soon enough.
Number 8. Mount Moon, Pokemon Red and Blue. Ah, that haunting cry, that incessant need to annoy. After completing the ultra-fun first gym of the original Pokemon game, you are faced with this shithole of a dungeon that is rife with Zubats. Not only are your steps marred with that flying nuisance, the cave itself is fairly bland, with only a few ladders leading to branching paths where a single item usually awaits you. Once you get through the gauntlet of bats, you get a fancy fossil, which is nice, but too bad you won't be able to do anything with it until you're basically at the end of the game. Number 7. The Deep Roads, Dragon Age Origins. So this one's a funny one. I played through Dragon Age Origins a while ago, and this area was completely wiped from my memory. I had a friend suggest it and I was like, huh? When does that happen? After watching a few walkthrough videos, I do remember the deep roads after you reach the dwarven city of Orzammar. The blight has infested the deep roads for ages now, and it's time to go delving and repel the threat. What makes this dungeon particularly shitty is just how dull it is. The roads are massive and reuse assets of caves, bringing you to see the same patterns of caves over and over and over. If that wasn't enough, the enemies aren't unique in the slightest, as you fight the same kind of darkspawn over and over. I can't say much else about it, it just sucks to go through.
What manner of beast is this?
Number 6. Lost City Xenobatos, The Legend of Dragoon. This city dungeon was the reason I made this list. I was playing through The Legend of Dragoon on my stream over on Twitch when I suffered through this unnecessarily tedious dungeon. Dart and the party need to get to a restricted part of the dungeon that requires a certain law to be put in place. The laws allow you to do things you regularly wouldn't be able to do. So how do you go about changing these laws? Well, first you go to the Legislation Center. After you dodge some random guards that warp you to a prison, which wastes so much time, you eventually reach a council of dudes lining up to plead their law changes. If you try and push your way through, you're scolded at and told to wait in line. Yes, you have to queue and wait with these little dudes as they spew nonsense that doesn't matter. When you do get your turn, you choose to amend a law. Which law, they ask? Well, hopefully you remembered the law number for the thing you want to change. Alright, so we got it changed, right? Nope, you have to take the law amendment to the law factory. You go through another series of hide and seek from guards and arrive at the factory. You submit it and we're done, right? Nope. They issue you a law launcher license and then you take that to the law launcher. Another series of dodging guards, then you arrive, take a floating disc to submit, boom, the law is now changed. This allows you to access the area you needed to. Hooray! But shortly after that, you have to change a law to allow a teleporter to work. Have fun going through the whole goddamn process again! Number 5. Blighttown, Dark Souls. Poison-riddled places suck. We know this well as gamers. But introducing a new type of poison in a new area that destroys your health in a matter of seconds, well, welcome to Blighttown. The shitty thing about the toxic status is that the assholes who shoot darts at you are very hard to spot. You only realize you're getting poison injected into you when the bar comes up on the screen and you're like, what the fuck, what's happening? Aside from the horrible poison, Blighttown is a mess of a maze. Its scaffolding is full of crazy enemies that try to tackle your face, massive dudes with clubs that drop poo, and fire-wielding dogs and whatever the hell this is. You can fall to your death in many places, and if you don't know the path well enough, you can get disorientated and confused. When you reach the bottom, you are greeted with a lovely, dark, sludgy swamp full of murderous bugs and slugs. Even the bonfire down there can be missed if you're not looking hard enough. And once you're down there, you probably aren't leaving until you defeat Quelaag, the difficult boss of this area. Have fun! Number 4. Water Temple, The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. You knew this one would be on here. It's always on these lists, and for good reason. In Ocarina of Time, up until this point, dungeons have been fairly straightforward with what you're supposed to do and where to go. Then you get to the Water Temple, which demands you do a few little extra side quests just to get the right equipment for the job, in the form of the heavy boots and the Zora tunic. Once you have those, you can start tackling the dungeon, and what a dungeon it is! In the original N64 version of the game, you're given places to play your ocarina to change the water levels, unlocking different areas depending on the levels. That was it. There was nothing to guide us, just pure dumb luck and memorizing what did what and where. It was sigh-inducing. In newer editions of the game, They were generous and marked the directions of the water level changers, what water change level will occur, and gave you clear lines of different colors to follow depending on what water level switch you were after. However, even with that additional help, the annoyance of switching the boots on and off repeatedly, and being limited to the hookshot to attack enemies while navigating this labyrinth, was enough to make any gamer lose all sense of fun playing the game. Just to highlight how torturous this dungeon was, the director of the game publicly apologized for the Water Temple. The Water Temple in the Ocarina of Time was notorious for being very tough to conquer. I am most sorry that it was not easy for you to put on and take off the heavy boots, that all the time you had to visit the inventory. I am very sorry about that. I should have made it easier to switch to the heavy boots. Number 3. The Ritual Path, Demon Souls. The Valley of Defilement was close to getting this spot, what with poison, a massive swamp, but it's this part, the Ritual Path, that just makes me stop playing this section of the game. After defeating the Adjudicator in the Archstone of the Shadow Men, aka the Shrine of Storms, you enter some ruins in the caves. At first, it's an easy place where you get to farm some good souls for a while, but just after that part, it turns into hell. You have to traverse a narrow ledge armed with big metal skeletons that can wipe you out within a few hits. Not only that, but the storm beasts, the flying enemies that fire stone spears at you, are pummeling you from the skies as you avoid certain death, dancing with these skeletons. If you manage to survive that, you enter a series of caves with narrow paths yet again. These paths immediately become dangerous as these blobby beam-shooting motherfuckers fire lasers up the path that decimate your health. These shadow lurkers are tied to various Reaper enemies in the caves, dying, finally, only once they are defeated. After the torture that is the caves, it calms down a bit, but if you fail to take down the boss at the end, well, you'll just have to do all of that all over again. Number 2. Nortoon's D-Block Sewers, Xenogears. Fuck these sewers. Faye, Saitan, and Rico are investigating the sewers regarding a series of murders. You must navigate your way through this confusing mess of a sewer, which is even more disorientating when you rotate the map, to move through the various hazards littered throughout the place. Fans slice into you, water drains harm you with, I don't know, sewer water? You run into various poison and confusion-inducing enemies, with some that slap you hard with their attacks. If you manage to survive that and investigate the 4 murder spots, you're rewarded with yet another location to go to, but oops, it's locked. Guess you'll have to find the key, wherever that may be. Of course, it's on the opposite side of everything, so you have to take this long route back, get the key, take the same route, and go back to unlock the treatment plant. There you obtain a bell to call forth the murderer, but you have to find a specific spot for said murderer. Once you do, get ready for a tough boss fight. One of the harder ones in the game up until this point. Red Rum, which is murder spelled backwards, starts by confusing 2 party members and then laying on some big hits. Once you get him down to around half health, he will use his insta-kill move, Murder, and take all your health. And not just your remaining health, it's your maximum health, even if you don't have that. 'Cause fuck you. Number 1. The Earth Cave, Final Fantasy I. So, I will admit I had never played Final Fantasy I until making this list. I read about the infamous Marsh Cave, which is a warm-up compared to this awful dungeon that takes place right after it. You enter the Earth Cave, and you are greeted by this cool music. Nice. But that's the only nice thing you'll have to say about this place. Much like earlier JRPGs, you are bombarded with random encounters, but by this point, you're used to it. However, if you move to the western part of this dungeon from the entrance, you come across a hallway that only loops back to where you started, but this hall has a gimmick. Every step you take will initiate a fight with a giant. A great way of level grinding, but my god, every step? Shoot me. Once you get past that section, you meander your way through the dungeon and its various misleading paths. You reach the end, there is a vampire that is causing harm to the town nearby. You slay him fairly easily and obtain a ruby. You explore past this room and find a strange stone blocking a path further. You must then leave the cave, give the ruby to a random titan that eats it, where you then get access to a sage's cave who tells you that the true enemy of the Earth Cave is beyond the vampire's room and that you need to use the rod he gives you to open the path further. That's right, you have to traverse through the Earth Cave yet again, hoping the cockatrice enemies don't petrify you and that, you don't die from the slog of enemies you have to fight. Once you get to the blocked path, you use the rod, go further and further down, seeking out the Lich in the furthest reaches of the cave. You fight, you win, you finally finish the cave and activate the Earth Shrine thing. Thankfully, you can warp out to the entrance from here.